I will say thank you for being so patient with me, because I know I've been asking some pretty big questions and that kind of thing. But I do very much believe that no matter how big the question is or how little the person might seem, like, everybody has value in their words.
Well, I'm sad as I can. You have to show them to me. Come on, show them.
For those of you guys watching at home that don't know what's going on, I met this lovely couple yesterday while I was doing a bit of the video about what was going on underneath the bridge, and it was such an amazing happenstance that kind of happened, and they spoke such gold on generally everything that was happening in the area. So I'd really like you guys to just take the time to just listen to what these guys are talking about here. I don't know which one of you guys want to go first, but please just share with us. What were your thoughts?
Should I go? Right. So, go on.
It's just like most weekends, we kind of like try to get out of our hometown just to kind of expose our children to different kind of places and cultures and people and art and all different things, really. So we saw on Facebook that there was something going on in Bristol, and we'd just been to a pump track in Lawrence Weston, and then we thought that we would come over to Easton, didn't we?
Yeah,
and show them the artwork, really.
Mm-hmm.
And
we used to live in Bristol, and then but then we moved out of Bristol when we had kids, and then we're really keen to expose them to everything that Bristol's got to offer, the buzz, the vibrancy, the communities, the cultures, everything that's going on there. And that was a part of our trip in yesterday, really, was to just show them another little piece of something that they can't see on their doorstep. That was the main reason for the trip in, and we're really glad we made the trip. They enjoyed it. They loved seeing it.
They asked lots of questions, didn't they? And it opened their eyes a little bit, and then we were able to kind of come home, and we were just kind of scrolling through BBC News, and there was like a feed on that as well, so it was able to kind of talk to them about that they had reporters there and what was going on there, and it was just really interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that also leads into showing them about the different types of art and careers and everything that can come from that, because graffiti for some people has a bit of a bad name, and for others it's a very current thing, and actually, where we live, you see messages scrawled and tags tagged and all the rest of it around the place, but actually we were really keen to show them the other side of graffiti, the organized, the structure, and just how skillful it is, and how colorful it is, and the messages that it can convey, and all that kind of stuff.
Just trying to make an area better, really, for people.
Definitely.
The importance of that.
That project has turned what was, some railway arches where you would want to go there, when it was how it was, it would be somewhere that actually a lot of people would be quite fearful of going to, actually, because it was dark, it was dingy, there was nothing appealing about it, but it's turned it into an area which is drawing people into the community. We saw people there. Yes, it wasn't just us there were other people who clearly made the trip to see it. So clearly it was the publicity that surrounded it, and the artwork itself was drawing people in. And in different times there'll be cafes benefiting for that, because you could stop and have a bite to eat at lunchtime, and actually not just the local economy, but actually it breaks down barriers as well, doesn't it? Because if it's bringing people in from all different areas into meet different people and chat with different people, that's got to be good, isn't it? So,
and it just kind of, with us, it just kind of opens our children's eyes and makes them ask lots of questions, and asking all about the different types of restaurants in the areas, the different types of people, and the reason why they were cleaning it, even though they had just kind of done the graffiti. It was just it kind of just encourages kind of questions and conversation in our family, which we quite like, don't we?
Definitely.
That's there. Yes, I love that. That's what it's all about, the conversation. That's what everyone can learn from.
Definitely.
A question I wanted to ask you guys. Normally I ask this to like the actual artists that are doing the murals and that kind of thing, but just out of curiosity, to you, what does creativity, or what does being a creative mean to you two?
It's a big question.
It's a very broad, right.
I think it's just being able to express yourself in all different types of mediums and kind of ways, and kind of without any judgment, and that's probably what it means to me, being creative. And
absolutely. It's about, if you've got a message you want to convey, conveying it in a way that's appealing to your audience, isn't it? So I guess it's knowing your audience and understanding what's going to appeal to them and what's going to be the hook that draws them in, so that you can convey the message you're trying to convey. I think the challenge with what we saw yesterday, though, is the sort of respect element of it, isn't it? You know, because it's about understanding where to draw the lines, where's the boundaries, because we spoke yesterday, didn't we, about one person's creativity is another person's vandalism, and that's but then where do you draw, who's best placed to make that decision around where the boundaries are drawn around that, you know? Because you know, it's who's to say that the people who haven't been commissioned to do a piece of work, why should their voice be any less significant or any less heard than someone who has been commissioned to do a piece of work? But equally, when someone has been commissioned to do a piece of work, should there not be some respect around the fact that that's their space? You know, I don't know where you know, that's a difficult argument to have, you know.
Yeah. No, you guys seem to really have it down, to be fair, and I really like how you guys are kind of really putting your children in the kind of space to be seeing these kind of things. And what's really interesting, actually, when you guys like both explained what being a creative or creativity means to you, it was interesting how like I can see how all those values that you told me, I can see you want those for your child. You want your child to be able to express themselves in the ways that they want to without any fear of anybody else and these kind of things. Yes, sorry, I completely forgot about that part there. Yeah, the education part. Could you touch a little bit on what you talked about yesterday with that?
So the thing for me that's really stuck out was when we were chatting, you know, there's the bit under the arches, which is all the pictures, which is just, you know, it's magnificent, and it's, you know, the colours and everything we spoke about. But then in the distance down by the motorway, you could see the wall of the motorway. And now for me, that looks like that's towards the other end of of graffiti. To me, that looks like people who perhaps don't necessarily have the artistic skill that some of the guys who were doing that stuff under the arches has. Maybe it didn't. It looked a bit more haphazard. It looked a bit more random. It was all overlapping. There was no sort of flow to it or anything like that. But and I, you know, it seems like a really good idea to use whatever space we can in Bristol to do the kind of stuff that was going on under the arches. Because why don't we make it a centre of vibrancy, and let's make it an artistic. It already is a cultural centre, isn't it, Bristol? You know, it's well known for its music culture and its artistic culture and all the rest of it. But actually, it was when you pointed out that some of the stuff going along on that wall, the heritage that's involved in that, and all that did, you know, underlines my lack of knowledge around graffiti and around art history and all the rest of it, you know. And
no fault of your own. That's no fault of your own.
No, but you know, we're all ignorant of something, aren't we? And I'm ignorant about the art history, you know. And it's kind of but then there's a lot of people doing this tagging who are probably equally as, or they have the same lack of knowledge that I've got around that kind of stuff. And perhaps they don't understand that maybe some of the work they're doing is perhaps defacing stuff which might go back 10, 20, 30 years and maybe has real cultural value when you're looking at graffiti as an art form or as a form of expression. And that we talked about, you know, the need to maybe educate people or give people, inform them, so that perhaps they can understand the cultural significance of some of the stuff that's going on there. And maybe that would change some perspectives. Maybe it wouldn't, but maybe it would change some people's perspectives anyway, you know. And I think that's really important, because it doesn't, you know, for the untrained eye, it didn't look like anything significant, you know, but for people who know about this kind of stuff, clearly there was stuff there that was of significance. And I think if that's not more widely communicated, unless people go really looking for it, they're never going to know, are they? You know, that's something we need to think about. Maybe
I think, and one of our at primary school, they did a graffiti trail in Bristol. So they came into Bristol and did a graffiti trail. Yeah. So that, so they went all around kind of like Bedminster and
the origins. Yeah. That's
and
cool.
they looked at loads of different graffiti and that kind of trying to, like, you know, bring it into schools and educate them a little bit. Yeah, definitely. So that he had a taste of that then as well.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit about the Banksy thing yesterday when they did the stencils with the Banksy, and that was the culmination of that trip. So they basically spent a whole day in Bristol trailing around through Bedminster. They ended up coming right into the city, so right behind sort of Nelson Street and right in the city centre, where there's some of the big pieces that go up like several stories of buildings. So there was a few places around there, and that was all part of their trail, just understanding, you know. And that was quite when they were quite young as well, wasn't it? Yeah, they were probably maybe, I don't know, I guess they were 9 or 10 when they did that, you know, and I think that was a bit of an eye opener for them. But that sort of thing's invaluable, you know. I think that's really, we would, any opportunities to do stuff like that, we would definitely be interested in the future, definitely. So.
Wicked. While I've got you guys here, actually, I'm thinking of more and more stuff as we're talking. As I said, it might end up coming across more like podcasty either way. It'll be fine. But you guys mentioned earlier that you guys used to live in Bristol.
Yeah.
In that kind of like time space from coming back and like first leaving, how much have you seen like that? Seen almost like that creative change? Has there been much change in terms of like the kind of art you're seeing, or if you are even seeing any art in and around Bristol compared to before you were here? Like now, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always thought of Bristol as a bit of a cultural melting pot, really, for all things creative. You know, definitely the music. Obviously, it's well known for its music stuff and art. And I suppose things like we saw yesterday. That's probably one of the first times we've seen something really organised. I would say, you know, something that's getting the sort of media attention that it is. So I suppose from that perspective, you know, there's always been graffiti in Bristol, and you know, and there's always been, you know, there's always been really artistic graffiti, you know, rather than just people scrawling names and stuff. There's been some, you know, and you're kind of used to that in Bristol. So I you know, I suppose I couldn't say that I've seen a massive change in the last few years. When we left 9 years ago.
I think because it's gradual, you almost don't notice it as much as well, don't you?
But we've been coming back to Bristol. You know, we're in Bristol all the time, so you know, it's not. We haven't gone away and come back after a decade and then you know, seen a stark contrast, because we've always been in and out of Bristol. So, but I think, you know, it's just.
I think even just seeing like the boys, like the bear, you know, the bear on the bear pit and things.
You know, the bear's not there anymore.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, I knew
Crazy,
that.
Right?
Yeah, even like just showing them.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, and showing them that and seeing like different things in Bristol we've shown them, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and all the different, you know, Eastern, you got Gloucester Road, you got all these different places which are all different, you know, they've all got their own identities, you know.
Yes. And it is like a crazy kind of thing where like Bristol's got like, it's almost got loads of little cities inside of it, all these little communities. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's part of the appeal of it, I think. You know, it's good to see different. So just going for a walk up Gloucester Road or going for a walk along Stapleton Road or something like that, you know, you get to see, you just immerse the kids in it and they just suck it all up, you know, and then kind of, you know, hopefully we'll see in the future what sort of impact it has on them. You know?
And I think when they're in their little bubble here, isn't it? We both work in Bristol, and it's just nice to kind of expose them to things that are kind of become normal to us, but aren't so normal to them, I guess, because they're living in this small town, and just, isn't it?
Yeah, and make them want to go off when they're old enough and go and explore it themselves.
Yeah,
you know? So,
definitely.
I mean, I don't know I don't know whether you guys feel qualified to talk on it or not. I feel like anybody would be qualified to talk on it, especially people that are coming in and out of Bristol and loving off Bristol so much. But like, are there any things that you would like to see more of in Bristol, maybe in terms of like creativeness?
Yeah, what you were doing yesterday, you know, more of that kind of stuff. I think, you know, there are so many barren spaces in Bristol. There are so many dilapidated buildings and waste areas, and which are just blank canvases, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know? And if we're not going to do anything productive with them in terms of changing the building and making it usable, what's the next best thing we can do with it? Is we can spruce it up and we can give it to someone to do something creative with. So, you know, there's a lot of room for improvement in Bristol, and there's a lot of areas that could be used, you know.
Different, like just bringing different cultures of children together, like workshops and things, isn't it? Just for all abilities and age groups, and yeah. And
I think for me, if you can use something like was going on yesterday as a vehicle to bring communities together, then that's gold, isn't it? You know, because if you know, if we can get people from different communities just practicing art, or someone giving them a workshop to do something like that, you know, just so they can learn the basics, and but actually whether they go on to be artists or whether they go on to even be interested in art isn't the real message there. The message is actually, if you can do it next to someone who you would not have met in your normal everyday life or in your community, and you can have a chat with them about something, well, that's a barrier that's broken down then, isn't it? And that's got to be good in the long term for society, hasn't it? So.
Oh my gosh, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to do with BSL Life here. One last question. As I thought about it as well, you guys, I really love how, as I said before, you guys are kind of like really pushing the creativeness and like letting them kind of see that kind of stuff, your children. I wonder, do you guys maybe have any advice for parents that might want to get their children more into the creative eye or that kind of thing? Or like want to show it off to them a little bit?
I think we've always just taken the approach to just try and expose them to as much stuff as possible in a safe way, obviously, you know, just to see new things all the time, take them to new places and show them new things. Some of it will pass them by and will go in one ear and out the other ear, you know, but if some of it sticks and some of it, and in 10 years time, they can tell me, actually, I remember the day we went to the Arches in Bristol and we looked at that, and actually that made me want to do this, or it made me, even if it made me paint my house a certain color, or if it made me like this, if it made me like this kind of art, or if it made me like, you know, I think you'll never know what success looks like until they're adults, will you? The one thing I would say is I think there is quite an appetite amongst our generation of parents, you know, our kids are 10 and 12. There's an appetite to engage in this kind of stuff, and I think you know, if there was more of it, I think you could build a bit of momentum, and it could grow into something. I think, because I think we're not unique. I don't think. I think there's a lot of parents who would like to do the sorts of things that we did yesterday. I think.
Just keep
and piggyback.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, just keeping your eyes out about what's on. We're always looking for like what's going on. Like just so we're not staying in the same area, in the same place, and the same people, like just kind of like looking, you know, just just kind of keeping your eyes out really to social media to see what's going on in the area, I think, and
social media.
Cool. Kind of piggybacking on that last question, like on the flip side, as you said, you guys are very active in terms of like looking for things to be doing with your children and in like Bristol and places around it. On the flip side of that, as parents wanting to get your children into these kind of things, is there something that you'd wish you'd see more of from, for example, creative organizations, or like in Bristol now, there's the One City plan going on, and a lot of it's kind of really focused on creativity. But is there something where you feel like maybe you'd like to see more of from companies, that kind of thing, creative companies, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think you get into the realms of, you know, these are big questions you're asking here, aren't they? But I think my children at primary, my youngest is still at primary school, but you know, the focus at primary school is quite narrow, I think, sometimes, in terms of, you know, the curriculum is very much focused as it should be, you know, on maths and numeracy but actually, if we could integrate that somehow with more of that cultural stuff, you know, because they did. I mean, that tour they did was great, you know, but that was one day in 6 years of primary school education, you know, where they had that sort of exposure. And I suppose it's how we encourage, because it's all very well us doing it because we take the time to find out.
Sorry, you break up a little bit.
Sorry, it's all very well us doing it because we take the time to proactively find these things and go out looking for them. But actually, what about all the other kids in the class whose parents don't proactively go and take the phone? And I say there is an appetite for it, but equally there's a lot of parents who don't go looking for this kind of stuff, and their children won't ever benefit from that exposure to that kind of stuff. So I suppose if we're looking for a sort of universal exposure to this kind of stuff, the only way to do that is to engage it with schools, isn't it? And get schools engaged in creative programs which enable kids to develop their English and their maths or whatever it may be, but to do so alongside that sort of creative element, you know, I think. And
a lot of it's free as well, isn't it? So it didn't cost us anything yesterday to come and so it's not, you know, it's not an expense, is it? So it's just
no.
Thank you. I will say thank you for being so patient with me, because I know I've been asking some pretty big questions and that kind of thing. I do very much believe that no matter how big the question is or how little the person might seem, like everybody has value in their words. You know what I mean? And everything that you guys have said has just been gold. As I said, I know for a fact there are parents that will be listening to this podcast now being like, yeah, no, they are exactly right. They're exactly right. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry to cut it short, but I do need to head off now as well. Thank you again so much.
Nice to see you.
You guys as well.
next time you get events or things going on, just tag Melissa in or whatever on the Facebook, and because we'd like to come, but actually, you know, Melissa's got friends and stuff, and if there's any publicity we can help from our end, you know, we're kind of, you know, if we can contribute to anything, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
and we definitely we just want to bring the kids along and show them anyway. So quite selfishly, we'd love to know about it, but if we can add to the publicity, then obviously, you know, we will.
That would be amazing. You guys are absolute stars. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a good day. I think the sun's gone down now, but look forward to the one tomorrow. Peace, take care, and say hi to the kids for me.
Cheers, CC. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.